Hello and good afternoon. Hello, everybody. This is the Agents of Change coming to you live. And we're going to be talking about generational cycles, specifically emotional neglect within families. And I'm just going to wait a few minutes, give some people time to join us and sign on. In the meantime, if you can go ahead and like and share, we'd appreciate that. And if you see that bell in the corner, the upper right corner, click on that so you can be notified when we go live in the future. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share on my phone while you all share on your end. How everybody doing today?
Well, how are you?
Doing good.
Very good.
Right. People that's already watching, you can put in the chat how you doing. I'm concerned about you all too. All right. Sharing to my page. And we have a Agents of Change group. If you're not in there, I'm going to share to them as well. Don't want nobody to miss this. All right, we'll give just a couple of more minutes for people to sign in. I see Colleen. Hey, Colleen.
Hey, Colleen.
I miss you. Yes,
Right.
I'm missing you.
That's great. Also, I wanted to just hop in here and say I'll be monitoring the comments. So if you do have any questions or any comments, go ahead and put your questions in and we'll make sure that we try to get to those with our expert today.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that, Cheryl. All right. Look like we can probably get started. Well, we have Colleen. I'm sure some other people will be joining in and they'll catch up. All right. Well, we have our guest expert with us today, clinical psychologist Tara Pope. Let's give her a hand. Yeah.
Thank you.
As we promised, she's going to be answering some questions that answering some questions that have been presented since our last broadcast. And we have also an invited guest, my husband, Vincent Pope.
Ooh.
And he is here to
Hello.
he is here to give us a male perspective. I know you see all these ladies here, and we thought it would be good to have a male perspective. Our other agent of change, Colleen, she is not able to be with us on screen, but she is in the chat, so she is yet supporting us there, and we thank her for just being a part of this afternoon's segment. All right. So we're going to do a recap of last week. I think it was last week. It seemed like it was a long time ago. Was it just last week?
It was last week.
Last Sunday.
Oh, before I do give the recap, I just want to say that today's presentation is for informational purposes only. And outside of Tower, we are not licensed professionals. We're just sharing our experience. And we hope that what we share, you may identify with it and that we're able to give you some resources to help you to get where you need to be, where God will have you to be at this moment. So like I said, this information should not be used as a substitute for advice of a licensed mental health care professional. And there is no professional obligation or relationship between the presenters and the viewers. So I just wanted to lay that out. Don't be saying we said XYZ. So get your professional psychologist or whatever you need to get where you need to be so that they can get more details about your situation. So like I said, we just have a little bit of information. Okay, so last week we talked about, we laid a foundation and just talking about what is a generational cycle. And we gave definitions and we gave examples. We talked about it from the biblical aspect, and we talked about the sin that Adam and Eve committed against God that caused some effects for generations and generations. And we talked about Abraham and Sarah. We talked about Isaac and Rebecca, you know, how they had a generation of when they went before kings or went to different nations that they told their wives to say, "You're my sister," because they were afraid that they would kill them and take their wife. So that was an example. And we didn't talk about even David and Solomon. There were some generational cycles within, you know, their context. And then we all shared our own personal situations of, you know, how we may have lacked some things as a child and how it affected us and still may be affecting us as adults. And we even talked with our children in some instances to see, you know, what were they lacking and what we didn't give, that we weren't able to give because we didn't know, and how it affected them. So we went into some discussion about that. And one thing that we wanted to point out, that you don't have to stay there, whether you had an experience as a child or you having an experience as an adult now, or you even raise your kids and, you know, didn't have the tools and resources you need, that we don't have to beat ourselves up about that or remain in position. So ladies, did anyone have anything they wanted to add that particularly stood out to you?
Just don't blame yourself for the things that have happened. They happened. You know, hopefully we can move on from them, but find out the root cause, and, you know, so that you can actually move on from it. That's about, and I like the idea that Deborah actually, where one went and asked her children, what did I do probably incorrectly, or you felt that you needed more from me. Well, Deborah went and asked her children, you know, what did I do right? Because she needed some encouragement, you know, along the way, as opposed to, you know, not beating herself up on everything she did wrong, because she realized that part needs some encouragement on what I did right. So that's two of the things that both of them very courageous to go to your children and ask them. I ain't that grown. Okay. You know, it is very courageous to go and ask your children either what you did right or what you didn't do so right. So that's what really stuck with me.
Good. Anybody else?
I would say, I think Cheryl mentioned that, you know, even when you have siblings in the same household, you don't all receive, you know, the experiences the same. So one may, you know, come up having that emotional neglect or lack of anything affecting them more than another sibling. And so just recognizing that and not feeling as if you are the black sheep or, you know, vice versa because of your situations, but everybody is made differently. Everybody's situation is unique for them. So
yeah, definitely. Definitely. All right, well, I'm gonna move on. Like I said, we have Mr. Pope here for a male perspective. I know one thing Cheryl mentioned, that as women, because we can only speak for ourselves, that we beat ourselves up for what we didn't do, or what, you know, what we weren't able to give because we didn't have it. And she mentioned that she's sure that men do the same thing. So I said, well, let's ask a man. Now, he doesn't represent all men, but he is just representation of, you know, what men go through. So I'm gonna ask my husband a few questions, and he's gonna give us his answers, like I said, from a male perspective. So, honey, what is a generational cycle that you recognize growing up as a child? We all mentioned some things last week, and I was just curious if you had anything that you recognized in your family.
Well, first, I recognized, well, my father wasn't in the picture.
And as a result of your father not being in the picture, what was your experience? What was it like? Because we all have, like Tara said, we all have our experiences living in the same household, we may have not had our father, but it's unique to individuals. So what was your experience not having your father there?
Well, my role models was my brothers. And my brothers, they introduced sex to me. So I became addicted of sex. And I was going through life, women as a womanizer. So it was, I was looking at women as an object, and I figured that's the way life was for a man to be. I wasn't taught to know how to deal with relationship. So as I got older, in my 20s, I would say, I got tired of being with multiple women. So I figured I'd get married, and that would help me with my sex addiction. But in my, during the course of that experience of marriage, come to find out it wasn't working out. It didn't turn out as my vision as I expected. So all along, it was feeling like I guess just part of me that I'm just a womanizer. So I figure I made a mistake. And I figure I was just want to live my life just being a womanizer. But during the course of that, because I have children, I choose to stay because I didn't want to feel like a failure to my children.
No, you did. When we were talking earlier, you mentioned about that you didn't have that relationship. You thought it was just the sex part, and how you thought if you got married that it would just change. All that would just miraculously change. So what was that experience when you found out after you got married? What was your experience?
Well, to me, I thought sex was a component, the main component. I thought sex was a language to me was relationship and love. So I figure, I thought that's when you lie with a woman, you make love to them, that's love. But all the other issues that came up, I didn't have no experience in that area. Wasn't taught, wasn't given advice on how to deal with relationship. Yeah.
Okay. And you were mentioning about your children. You felt like you were a failure. In what way?
I feel like because I felt like a failure to my children because I didn't know how to be a father. Pretty much, it was, to me, what I seen, it was a lot more than just working, putting a roof over their head, but actually having a relationship with them, concern, talking with them, being open to them, teaching them things. Because my love language is if I just give them give them what they want, keep a roof over their head, clothe them, that was showing that I love them. It is a sense of love because I'm taking care of my responsibility. But I figured that's all I needed to do.
And that's because like we talked about, that's all that you received, somebody that's all you saw.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah. So in the course of that, I examined myself because I didn't like the road or the path that I was going down. Because I see myself, but I figured there was more to being married, being married to a wife and having children. So it took a lot to find answers because I talked to friends, best friends. Of course, the father wasn't in the picture, so my alternative goal was to seek the Lord. So I got saved, and that was an impact on my life because it changed me to be on the right path of relationship.
And that's what we want to emphasize you don't have to stay where you are. And I know when Vince and I talked earlier, he even mentioned how when he got married, because he didn't have that information, he felt like he was in over his head. And he was always looking for a way out. Like, this is not for me. I'm a failure. I feel like I'm in over my head. I'm not equipped for this. And he was, in his mind, wanted out, you know. And
yeah. I wanted out of the relationship. I figured it wasn't for me. So yeah. Because I learned there's a lot to relationship or being married. But it came to the point, I examined myself for who I was. It wasn't, I try to blame others, for my failure, but it turned out to be, God opened my eyes where it was me had to make some changes in order to make this work.
Right. Well, I'm so glad you did seek the Lord about that.
Yeah,
I know some people will say that, right. I know some people would say once a cheater, always a cheater. But I'm gonna let you all know out there, for me being his wife, I've been on this journey with him for over 30 years. And our marriage is living proof that God can, and he do and can change people. And we don't have to stay the way we are. And we always have a choice. We always have a choice to stay. We always have a choice to leave. It's our choice, but we have to face the consequences of our choices. Right. And if you don't believe that people can change, you don't know the power of God. You don't know the power of prayer. And I will, pray that you have that experience to be able to experience life-altering change, not only in your life, but in the people that you're connected with, that when you change, that the relationship will change. When we know better, we have a choice to do better. And I'm glad my husband chose to do better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's just some of the generational cycles, but that was the main stronghold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Can I just say something before he leaves? I just admire the power that took in coming on Facebook, to share that piece of information and know that your experience is not just your experience. I guarantee you, when other people listen to this again, or their husband, I'm about to let your brother listen in on this when we get finished, but it also helps the next person. And it also helps us women to understand what is going on. We think, men should have these things. You the man, but in reality, we're all God's children, and all children need is a father, a loving father. And the fact that your statement that I had to examine myself is key.
Right.
We all have to take a personal inventory. We all do. So I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing.
Yes,
Because
it took a lot.
It took a lot, yeah.
I appreciate it too. I'm like, as your daughter, like I never heard any of that from you, so I don't want to cry. So I'm gonna just say that's all it is.
This is
powerful.
This is just the power of God, because it was years that I remember when Vince and I was talking years ago. I reminded him, I said, "Am I your friend?" And he laughed, like, "No, you're not my friend. How you can't be my friend, you my wife." And I'm thinking, well, I wanted my husband to be my best friend, but in his mind, a wife is just someone you sleep with and take care of the kids. I got friends. Me and my friends, we hang out. Those my friends. I can't be your friend. But I thank God that we are friends. He was telling me guys on his job want to work overtime. He like, no, I want to go home and be with my wife. I like spending time with my wife, talking to my wife, and nobody could do that but God. It was a time where I was trying to control him. He was trying to control me. We thought we could change one another. But like when he recognized what he needed to do in him, I had the same experience. I had to recognize what I needed. So we focused on ourselves and changing ourselves, or allowing God to do a change in us, and not focused on the other person. And that's when we saw that shift in our relationship, in our marriage.
I would say in your family, because I witnessed it as your child. So
Oh,
and
wow.
it made an impact on me
Mhm.
as a person.
Yes.
So,
That's
Yeah.
very good. And where generational cycles or curses are being broken even in this moment. We have two generations here, and had Vince not been here to share his male perspective, his perspective from that side, Tara wouldn't be able to get what she's hearing and the deliverance or whatever she needs to move on. So I thank God for just allowing this space and this time that we can come together, you know, as a family, or this happened in relationships, period. You don't have to be a
Period.
father, child, or
Right.
husband, wife. This is life. This is relationships. And this is a good example of how God changes the hearts of people.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay where you are. You have a choice. There
Right.
are people, resources out there available to you. I just
Mhm.
thank God for this opportunity in this moment. Honey, anything you want to say before you leave us?
Well, I want to say that to find an understanding when they say when a man find a wife, he finds a good thing, but understanding what that really means, because a wife is a gift from God. Yeah, and that's, you know, and I really got a real definition of what that really means.
Praise God. Thank you, honey.
Child, you got a whole gift right there.
Well,
Bless you.
we're going to applaud you and thank you for joining
Yes,
us.
thank you
giving us
so
another
much. That is just
perspective.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your courage and just allowing us this time to share with us.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And if you don't want to be on the rest, you can sign yourself off and we'll just go ahead. But thanks again.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
thank
I'll mute,
you.
but I'll watch. Want to hear some
There
of the
you go.
answers.
You hear some of the answers, huh? I
Yeah, and the
understand.
questions there.
Yeah, the
That's
questions
good.
and the answers. Mhm.
All right, well, we're going to move into our next segment. We couldn't move forward into our Q&A until we heard from a male perspective, and that was part of our recap, just, you know, having that foundation. That was part of the foundation, and yeah, that was good. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start the next part, and that is to do our Q&A with our very own Tara Pope. I'm going to read her bio if you all just bear with me. Tara Pope is a clinical psychologist with a master's degree and is currently studying for her doctorate at the Michigan School of Psychology. She believes that God has purposed in her to be an agent of change in the mental health field. It has been her passion to find ways to integrate mental health and Christianity. Growing up in the church, she has been able to witness the stigmas and silence that can be present in Christian communities when dealing with mental health. She believes in the power of prayer. She also believes in the power of therapy. God has qualified individuals like Tara to be a vessel for him to help heal mental disorders and bring individuals closer to him. Tara hopes that with change, people will be enlightened and join her in advocating for spiritual and mental health. Let us welcome Tara Pope to our platform.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. You know, I got a little emotional, but I'm good. Okay. I'm happy to be here though, and just expanding more on what we already talked about and giving more insight into what questions we'll have.
All right, well, we'll get right into it. These are some questions that was, like I said, that have been generated since our last meeting. And the first one is, what types of behaviors show up in families to recognize when there is emotional neglect?
So with this one, I would say it's difficult starting out to see it, especially if parents are believing that their behaviors are normal or that they don't see any other, you know, anything different, you know, from in their families. But just like what my dad said and everything, your relationships show when there are issues. So when those issues arise, there are some times where you have to look at yourself or look at what's lacking or needed in the relationship. But I would say some of the behaviors that you may see are your emotions or feelings not being noticed, valued, or parents or any other people in the family not responding to your emotions. So they may question your emotions or say it's not that bad, you'll be all right, stop crying, stop being so dramatic, kind of minimizing your perspective and not listening to what you're feeling or saying.
Oh, wow. I've said some of those things. Wow, that's good. Okay. The next question was, how can someone begin to break the cycle of behaviors from the effects of emotional neglect? And or what are some positive ways of replacing unhealthy habits or behaviors?
So with this, I thought about it and just found that it was basically acknowledging it first, exploring it. So looking at processing what had happened. So acknowledging the lack of the lack of emotional support in family. So acknowledging that happened and acknowledging that it has affected you, that you feel like there was something lacking, that it may have felt traumatic for you. So acknowledging that aspect of it, but also not blaming anyone, and just saying that it happened. This happened to me. And this is what went on. And then you can also go on to explore it and maybe look back to, let's say, your parents, and like they didn't experience emotional support. And then the next one would be to look within yourself and work on what you've been dealing with and how you interact with people and how you interact with your children, your friends, your loved ones, and see what things you need to grow in. So kind of in identifying the patterns that you've developed over the years from your childhood or from living with individuals that were not supportive in that way. And then also with knowing those things, seek the help that you need. So whether that be from a therapist or just even your own self-reflection, prayer, talking, spirituality, talking to God, and having that self-reflection with him, and then maybe a therapist, support groups. And then next would be give yourself grace and give yourself self-compassion, and recognizing also that it's not your fault that these things happen or that you experienced this growing up, but you can make the change. You can continue to change the narrative in that area. So, but by giving yourself grace and that self-compassion, that can increase your self-esteem, that can increase how you value yourself, how you take care of yourself. Because most people that grow up and don't have that emotional support or validation, they see themselves as less than or not important. So that's how they treat themselves. So with that grace and compassion, that's where you can replace those unhealthy habits with healthy behaviors. And then just with being able to ultimately tell people what you need, articulate that. Once you figure out what was lacking and what you've experienced, you're able to better understand, okay, I might need to be hugged more. I might need to be told I'm good at this, or have some affirmations told to me. And also with telling people your needs, you need to be open to receive the feedback from them when you offend them or hurt them. And that may be the most difficult part, because growing up, you're like, we don't talk about if we're offended or if we're hurt, but that's how you start to change it with your children, with your spouse, with your friends, and allowing them to kind of give you those criticisms. Like, I don't like the way you talk to me that way. I like it when you open up more. I don't like it when you shut down, different things like that. So that would be like the last goal to practice to continue to change that cycle.
Oh, wow, that's a lot. We got some work to do. But when you talked about the blame, I was like that. I'm like, well, it's, you know, my mom was blunt and straightforward or controlling, and it's not my fault. But like you said, talking about finding out why your parents were that way. And that helped me to not blame. That helped me to have an understanding for why she was how she was, and like you said, the grace. Okay, Michelle, you're like this. You got that. She had it because of this. Now, what are you going to do about it? So I thank you for those steps and going in that direction. So very good. But yeah, it sounds like a lot, but if we just take it one step at a time, I'm sure we will get where we need to be. And just if anybody that's listening, if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, we have a couple of more. Please put them in the chat. And Cheryl, she's monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, we'll bring those up as well. All right, the third question we have is, how long does it take to recover from emotional neglect?
Ooh. And I was gonna kind of answer that when you said, well, that's a lot, you know, and with that, these things, you know, they can all work in conjunction and, you know, step by step. But I would say it depends how long it would take. Just like we talked about before, people grow up in the same household, but certain things may affect them differently or more intense than others. And so there's no definite recovery time from this, but it'll depend on the impact, like I said, from the emotional neglect and then the work put in for it. So it would just depend on all of that. So it depends on the person and depends on their situation and how much effort they put in to change.
Good, good. Moving
In
right
other
along.
words, it's a process.
Yes.
And it may
It's
come
not like
back
a
because
cake.
yeah, and like you may see progress and you're like, oh, I'm, you know, my relationship's going better and things like that. And then you may see something else come up and you're like, oh, where'd this come from? You know, because you're just
That's
now
good.
encountering this situation, this scenario, you like, I gotta fix this too and things like that, you know. But so it's a constant life, you know, challenge to
So it's almost like it's not a diet.
right. No quick fix.
Not a diet. It is a life cycle.
Yes,
It's a
or lifestyle. How about
lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Very good. Number 4, can we overcome the effects of emotional neglect if we ignore our pain from our past?
So with this one, I feel like like what I said, things may come back. Like it may be like a diet if you ignore your past, you know, not the lifestyle, because you can acknowledge your behaviors and change them and things like that. So you can eat healthier, work out, but to really have a lasting effect is to understand what has led to the behaviors. So what has led to you shutting down when people talk to you, but you get irritable around, you know, people are trying to be close, these different things. Why are you feeling this way? And that will lead you to going back to your childhood and then going back to your parents' childhood. And so you can have an understanding of why these issues are impacting your relationships. Because with a diet, you know, you can eat less meat and do all this stuff, but why are you struggling to, you know, not go to the fast food restaurant every day? Or why are you struggling to not work out? What is the root cause of these issues?
Yeah, that's
It's
what
like I'm sorry.
Oh, go
It's
ahead.
Colleen made a comment. She said it's like you previously said, when we have to give ourselves grace because it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Tara, when she was talking and then she said it, get to the root of it. We have to get to the source of the problem. Like you could go to the doctor and say, I have a headache, and they could prescribe some, you know, something to alleviate the headache, but you might have hypertension. You might have high blood pressure, but that's the root cause of your headache. Don't just mask it with Motrin or something. So we got to get to the root cause.
All right.
Okay, good. Number 5, where do we draw the line when we want to make someone aware of surroundings without making them fearful or creating generational cycles of fear, such as with systemic racism? Or does a line exist? I know this was something that we talked about last week.
Yeah, and thinking about this more, it made me think that making someone aware and then making someone fearful, I feel like are two different ideas. So with making someone fearful, you can be telling somebody to avoid certain situations, don't interact with certain people. And that's when that anxiety or fear develops, because with anxiety, it's a cycle. So you go from, you know, having that situation, knowing about it, avoiding it, you feel that a relief a little bit, and then the anxiety comes when you come in contact with that situation again. So every time you avoid it, the anxiety increases. So with that, with avoiding people, avoiding situations, when you come into contact with them, your anxiety is increasing every time because you're finding ways to avoid them, finding ways to not interact with these people. But on the flip side, with making someone aware, it's more of telling them that these situations have happened and they could happen again. But more so saying, here is how I dealt with it, and telling them to stay, giving them strategies to deal with it if they were ever to come into contact with those situations. Because with anything, it's a possibility of anything in life, car accidents, anything. So it comes to a point where you have to either stay prayerful or have opportunities to have conversations about these things you fear, and making sure you're aiming to keep your peace, because continuing to dwell on or avoiding them or not even talking about them can increase that anxiety and increase that fear. But when you're able to talk about things, when you're able to express how much things scare you and have that support from other people, it decreases the anxiety, along with being prayerful. That's you talking to God, that's you leaving it with God. And these things will not only decrease the anxiety and fear, but bring you more peace in those areas.
And I thought about when you were talking, when it's in the context that we mentioned last week, it was about, telling, like, your son, if you're a Black male, and you're saying, when the police pull you over, do X, Y, and Z. And if you don't share the backstory, like what you said, Tara, well, when you do share the backstory and they get to understand, they might have creative ways to handle the situation. So they may be able to teach us something, from a parent standpoint, like, oh yeah, well, we did this back in the day. Well, Dad or Mom, have you ever thought about this? Because this is what I've learned, in life, and among his peers or at school or wherever his sphere's influence is. So it can open a door for us to learn something as parents as well.
Well, you really just opened a door just then, because we do have a question.
Okay.
From one of our male. I'm sorry.
Should we answer it now related to this?
It's related to a male perspective.
Okay.
I wanted to add a little bit more to this one, and then I can answer that one. So I was thinking also with, making people aware of situations, sometimes it can be too much. It can be too much awareness, So I thought about the news, social media, and how we're so immersed in what's going wrong in the world, people being harassed, people being killed, all these different things. And I, even for myself, will have to set boundaries. So setting boundaries for myself decreases my anxiety and fear around it too, because of course, out of sight, out of mind, not thinking about it and not fearing it can decrease that. But I still want to know about it. I still want to be aware, but it comes to a point where you don't want to see it every day of every minute, And so with that, I see something, I don't dive in deeper, I pray on it, and then I go to something else, because so that just shows that the line of, fear and awareness, it can be the responsibility of the person telling you, and then also the responsibility of the person receiving it to set those boundaries on what you allow yourself to be aware of.
Boundaries, that's real good. We have to set boundaries. Yes.
Boundaries is key. We have house boundaries around your house for your property. You need to have boundaries around your heart and your mind. That is true.
Mhm.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
Cheryl, you want to present the question that's
Yep.
in the chat?
So we have, the question is from Vincent, you may have to unmute, but I'm just saying, the question is, how do you teach young men to open up emotionally about their feelings?
Got anything? Or you want, I can talk first. um, so it's difficult. If we're talking on the end of the young man, like how he can open up, I feel like it comes along with trust. So finding somebody he can trust, finding somebody that's shown themselves non-judgmental, and they feel like they can share their feelings with him. So having that reciprocity with that can help too. I know it's difficult to find that in your life, or find that because some people expect men to not have feelings or share their feelings. So having that, I guess it'll be kind of like a test, testing people to see how much you can share, or how they receive certain things, or seeing if you can express yourself to them. Because I know the fear of being hurt, or the fear of being judged is there when, you're stopping yourself from sharing with others. And then also, if you can't find that in your life, I would suggest seeking a therapist, because they're there to help you. They're there to allow you to be free in expressing yourself.
Good.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
I agree.
That reciprocating. It's like I've noticed, not to speak on males, but just humans in general, when we're transparent and open, it helps others to be transparent and open. So I think Vince here sharing, being transparent and open about his situation is an approach that a man to another man, or adult male can help a younger male to open up. And you don't have to tell all your business, but allow yourself to be transparent and vulnerable, to be human, and to share some of your experiences even as a child. And I know, just coming from the church, even in some homes, some topics are taboo, and the children, the young men, young women have nowhere to go because these conversations are taboo. So if we first take the initiative to open up and to share, some things that we've overcome, it can help with that transparency as well.
And I would say, don't, from a female perspective, I know you asked for a male, but I think we're all experiencing this same thing, is don't preach at someone, don't talk at them, and especially a male, talk at them about a thing, talk with them, share with them, and it allows them space to share with you as well. And as Tara mentioned earlier about verbalizing your needs, and be open to hear what they have to say about how you verbalized your need. Number one, how you have affected them, especially if you're the male in their life, how your lack of whatever, or how your benefits of whatever. We weren't raised in our house by our biological father. We were raised by our daddy. Okay, big difference. So our dad had to give for as little as he knew, because he wasn't raised with no man, with a man in the house. So sharing experiences and allowing him the space to verbalize those same feelings, because they're not the same young people, but I think they are, because we, was probably like this. It's just a different generation, we always say, but each generation was different to the last generation. So be open to hearing the language they use, the conversations that they use. Is just a way of just being open enough to them, so you could be able to, or give them the opportunity to share with you.
Yeah, I was going to add on articulating your needs. If you noticing somebody is not, if they're talking at you or not with you, articulate that, or how you want them to respond. I want you to just listen. I want you to just hear me. I don't need sometimes people don't need a fix or a resolution. Like sometimes they just need to talk. So being able to recognize that for yourself, and then letting your other person know that's what you need from them is important too.
And sometimes it
Yeah.
just be a hug.
Yeah, that's true. And
It could just be a
ma-
hug, because men do not get hugged enough from other men without it being, people getting all wishy over it. A hug is simply saying, hey brother, I'm here. I got you.
Yeah, I agree. Cause I started, hugging my children, and I kiss them on the cheek and let them know, that I love them and I'm proud of them. So I guess to get the young men to open up to another male is to trust and not to be judged, and be more of a listener than more always stepping in and asking, saying something or answering questions, because a lot of times, like a lot of males don't give a lot of view on listening, because we always quick to we are like a fixer. We always want to try to fix something, and and it's not always that the case to always fix something, but to listen, but to earn the trust, I believe, from another male, from a young male to another male, because men, we don't open up because we got the security. We don't trust a lot of people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. I hope we answered the comment that was in the chat. We're going to move down to the next question. What can be said to someone that feel they don't need to do anything about unhealthy generational cycles because they're single or they don't have any children? So I don't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm. And from that, I got that they feel like they won't affect their, cycles that's been cycled through them won't affect anybody else. But it doesn't just affect children and spouses. It affects all relationships. So whether you're trying to get close to make new girlfriends, boyfriends, co-workers, any relationship, it can affect all of those relationships. And I developed a list of different things that people will notice in themselves that can affect all of those relationships. So maybe you're afraid of relying on others. You reject offers of help, support, or care. 2, you may have a hard time identifying your strengths and weaknesses, likes and dislikes, life goals. 3, you're harder on yourself than you would be even on a stranger. You lack self-compassion and understanding. You blame yourself, direct your anger inward, feel guilty. You feel numb, empty, or cut off from emotions, unable to manage or express them. You're easily overwhelmed and give up quickly. You have low self-esteem. You're extra sensitive to rejection. I saw some say you have perfectionism. You believe you're deeply flawed and there's something about you that's wrong, even when you can't name it. So just these different things that you can think about yourself. And then also when it comes to other people, you may become irritable. You may be, may seem like you're angry or irritable all the time. You have difficulty having those conversations. So you react in a way that's either that you've learned to end the conversation or divert it to something else. You have situations where you start friendships or even romantic relationships and end them when they start to get too close. So different things like that is not only, gonna affect your children or your spouse, but they affect you overall. And so ultimately, when it comes time to make those relationships or just coworkers, friendships, they're gonna impact those as well.
And I know when Cheryl and I was talking about this, and I just thought about the question and thought about how it's not just like you said, it's not just affecting our children or spouses, but other people are looking at us as well, you know,
Right.
so they're birds of a feather flock together in, you know, all the birds not relational. I mean, they don't have, people are watching, you know, watching us, and we don't even know that they're watching us, and we're leaving a legacy even if we don't know that. And the example that came to mind was Michael Jackson. Look at the million of people that watched his life, that he made an impact in their lives. He was leaving a legacy that he's still talked about today. He, you know, so people are still going to talk about us or say some things, or even if we weren't married or there weren't our children. So it still goes on, like Tara said, in generations. It's just not in our bloodline.
Right.
Right.
Hey, Tara, do you think you could post those things on the AOC page so
Yeah.
that if anybody need a clip, because I was trying to write them down, but
Yeah, I'll put some notes on there.
and so would you say that if it was if you're affected by any one of those, or would you say if you got 3 in there, you really I'm talking to no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I feel just any one, I would say, you know,
Okay.
because I feel like any of those beliefs about yourself, or how you see yourself, is not just from you. It's from previous relationships. It's
Right.
from previous interactions with people. So so that's how you carry that and cycle it and continue to transfer that down through the
Into
generations.
relationships altogether. Yeah. Good.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yes, it is. We have one more question. So if anybody is just tuning in, if you have a question, please put it in the chat and we will get to it. But this is the last one that we have from over the week. And it is there anything that hasn't already been asked or mentioned that you believe the audience should know as it relates to this topic of emotional neglect or even generational cycles?
So I did have something just dealing with how people are raised, you know, in their childhood with their parents, siblings, and I don't know if you have all have heard of attachment styles. So a lot of those different how you grew up defines your attachment style. So there's 4 different ones. I'll put this in the chat comment too, because it's a lot of info, but it's 4 different ones. So secure is one, anxious / preoccupied is another, avoidant / dismissive, and then disorganized / fearful. These are all attachment styles that people develop over time, and the different descriptions with them. So for secure, this is the one where you should aim to try to be. So with that, you're comfortable with being close with people, but you also are valuing your individuality in relationships. You're comfortable with solitude, but you're also comfortable with being in relationships. You're open and straightforward, easy to connect with. People are attracted to you. You're warm. So that was for secure. And then anxious, preoccupied. So these individuals, they crave relationships and intimacy and love. They have a hard time being alone, being single. They crave the reassurance and confidence boost from others. But once their relationships become more serious, they develop fear of rejection, jealousy, and distress. And then avoidant dismissive, they are seen as independent, assertive, and self-sufficient, and they have no problem being single, but they're very sociable, popular, and friendly. They date a lot of people or interact with a lot of people, but lose interest as soon as it becomes more deep or emotional. They pursue their needs in relationships regardless of others' needs. And then the last one, disorganized or fearful. These individuals are contradictory. So they alternate between the anxious and the dismissive style. So they want to be loved and connect with others. They are seen as confident, attractive, exciting, but they have a fear of being hurt, which makes it difficult to bond and open up with people. So they have a hard time developing relationships due to the process of getting to know someone. It feels painful for them or confusing. So with all those they can develop many different ways, but it's all from how you were raised, so your childhood. And so I believe that it can change over time, your attachment style, and that comes with breaking those cycles. So I will be transparent in my situation. I feel like I started thinking back to my childhood. I feel like I was more maybe avoidant, dismissive. So independent, self-sufficient. I may seem friendly, talk to people, things like that. And then I feel like over time I became secure. And I will honestly say, I think it's because of the change in my parents. I would say that. And then I would say it's the change in myself also. And I think the change in my parents affected the change in myself. So with that, with saying all of that, I feel like it's not solely on, you know, what you're going through and things like that, but it's certain styles that you develop, and these are because of the ways you've been raised and things like that. So you can go on to shift those or change those, or some people don't become aware, so they stay in those types of styles. But with this, you can actually take quizzes to see what your style is. And I'll put it in it's called attachmentproject.com. And so it's a free quiz. You can take it and you can see which attachment style you have. And it kind of, you can research more into it and see, okay, what type of environment affected this for me to have this type of style.
Now, Tara, that was something new. I'd never heard of that
Mhm.
before. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Now, you mentioned that you went from one style to another style. Is it possible that a person could be in two different styles at the same time, or is it like a flow? Everybody's trying to get to the secure.
I would say, I don't think it's a spectrum. Like, I don't think it's like worst to best, but I think secure is the one that shows that you're, I guess, most self-affirmed and things like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like the other three, they're more so just, those are the ones where you can see maybe emotional neglect was in childhood, or different certain types of different parenting styles, or different things like that.
Okay, okay. Good information. Yeah, put that in the chat because I'm gonna need that.
Mhm.
Need to hear that. Cheryl, did we get any more questions in the chat?
We did not.
Okay, good,
Nope,
good.
that was it.
Hopefully we answered everybody's questions that they had with the questions that were already presented. And it's not too late. If you have a question, we can answer it in the chat later if we're not still on the live event. But we had some good nuggets and things that was here and said, and I just hope everybody, you know, receives something from it. We're getting ready to wind down, so I'm going to ask the ladies and our guests if it's any final thoughts before we conclude this topic of generational cycles and emotional neglect within families. Anybody have any final thoughts?
I would probably say be selfish or selfless, because if you don't, you'll never heal from this. You have to be what people would call selfish. Be okay with that. Get help and get healed for yourself before you can do anything for anybody else, or you will be no good to anybody else until, as my brother said, you do the work in yourself. So this is a good, this was really good stuff.
So put your mask on first before you attempt to help anybody else. Get your
At
oxygen.
least put your mask on.
Save yourself first so you can help
Save yourself. Y'all done been in planes before.
Right.
Save yourself.
Deborah, did you have anything? You're quiet this evening.
I'm really, really excited about this whole topic, and I'm really learning a lot. I'm getting a lot, and it takes time to search yourself and your own you know, like Tara was saying, acknowledge and identify some things, and, you know, in yourself, and explore. Okay, it takes time to find out, now, what do I like? Is this what they put on me to like, or do I really like this? You know, it's some choices that we have to make to find out who we are, to discover, you know, did this, and these extra things that she put in the chat, that we're gonna take that quiz. I'm looking forward to taking that to see, you know, to gauge where I fit in, as far as discovering who I am, so I can better serve. Because if we don't know who we are, if we can't set boundaries, it's one thing that some people don't know certain things. Like if you say something like, don't talk to people, don't talk at them, talk to them. You know, I heard that a while back. I didn't know what that meant. Couldn't distinguish the difference between it. And sometimes we have answers for people, and you know, they might not understand it. So they can ask more questions. You know what I'm saying? Instead of feeling guilty because they don't know that. Because people will make you feel bad. Like, you don't know that. So I want to encourage people to ask any question that you might want to know the answer to, not think that, you know, feel embarrassed because you don't know, or, you know, you could be asking for somebody else that want to know as well. You know, we don't all know everything, but it's good that the people that know it are on the platform and able to share with us, like Tara and like Vincent and Michelle, and being transparent. And Cheryl, this is a generation of people here. We've been in the same family. That's really something to be sitting here as an example. And it's usually before people, audience, that things happen in your life. Like, it wasn't done in secret. The changes, we see the evidence. We saw the evidence of how they used to be and how they are now. So with 2 or 3 witnesses, every word is established. Your lifestyle is being established by the witnesses too. That makes it even more, you know, in there and established.
Thank you so much. When you were saying that, it made me think about when you hear mostly teachers say there's no stupid questions, you know, because somebody else might be wondering the same thing. And if neither one of them ask the question, they leave away without the answers. And we want everybody to be equipped and have what they need. There's no stupid question. And Deborah, when you were talking, I thought about even when Tara was saying all this, I'm like, whoa, this seemed like a lot of work. You may feel overwhelmed, but just take it step by step. Don't try to eat the whole roll, but take off a piece. And for relationships to thrive, we have to do the work. You know, we can pray and all of this, but God is not going to be like poof. You know, he's not that kind of God. You could pray and ask God to do something, but it's going to take some faith, some works with your faith. You're going to be required to do some work. Marriage is hard work. Relationships is hard work. We all say we wish kids came with manuals. They don't. So we just trial and error, and we just believe God and grace. We talked, Paul said that grace. We all need some grace. So Vance, I see your mic off. Did you have something to share before we sign off?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for having me, and I would thank my daughter Tara for her expertise there, for answering the questions that's been presented. Yeah. And I also want to say to everyone that you can't do this change on you by yourself. You can seek help, but also the seeking help is allow God to guide you and direct you in the right path, because only change comes through God. Because we think we got an answer, or we try to figure out how to do it, because the adversary is always out there to try to block you from succeeding in you know, making those changes, because he's working 24/7. So we have to expose those generation cycles, so God can get the glory out of that. So we expose it. So that's when healing become upon in our life. But it's not an overnight thing, but it takes time. Like you said, we need the grace to continue to go forward in our life.
Amen.
All right, very good.
I was gonna say one last thing, just in conjunction with everybody, just mostly to Mom, what you saying is a lot, it's overwhelming. I would say starting out, just be aware. Acknowledge that the issues are there, and then everything else will follow, because you're already feeling and seeing like, oh, this is an issue and you want to change it. So it's going to eventually come. The behaviors to change it, the behaviors to seek out help, the behaviors to open up to other people about it, because it's just because you become aware of it, it's gonna be on your heart to automatically fix it. So that's the first step. Just be aware.
Yeah. And just to close on that note, God knows what we can handle. He knows how much that we can bear. So he's not going to put it all on us at once. And I just, what Tar reminded me as I went through the process of change, it was organic. It wasn't something that I had to, study for or read up on and, follow steps 1 through 10. So it was organic, and God just allowed the process to happen naturally. And you just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm not that person anymore, so thanks for saying that. It brought that back to my remembrance, so you won't have that overwhelming feeling. Well, thank you all. This has been so great. And it's like, we could sit here some more, but we're gonna close out, and next Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday, so we're not going to compete with Super Bowl. We ask that you all enjoy your weekend next week and just join us back here.
Go halftime. Oh, sorry. I don't even know what teams are playing. My bad.
Yeah, I just know about the halftime show, but anyway.
I just know Eminem is on it, so I'm good. I don't know. I'm just saying.
We'll be back on February the 20th, and we're going to be talking about mental trauma. So like we said, you got that bell in the corner, just click on that so you'll get the notification when we go live on the 20th. And we just thank everybody for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you all on the 20th.
Bye, everybody.
And it's okay to set personal boundaries and know your limitations. You're in control.
All right. Thanks, Cheryl.
All righty.